there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the video. I think we're going to have a very interesting discussion today, even though it's a little bit different from what I normally do here on the channel. So today I'm going to be talking about my Myers-Briggs personality type. And if you're unfamiliar with the Myers-Briggs assessment, it's something that you'll see a lot used in workplaces, as well as sometimes in, personal coaching scenarios, possibly even therapy scenarios, where they sort of break all of the various personality traits that people have into some broad categories to come up with these coded personality types. And now these are meant to be somewhat generic. It's not a 100% perfect science. But over time, a lot of people who have taken these personality assessments and then sort of read up on, their personality type and how they interact with other personality types, they do find some benefit in managing their relationships in their life. Thought it would be really interesting to sort of analyze my personality type and then see how that actually affects my enjoyment of the tabletop wargaming hobby. And I hope in kind of walking through this with me, it might lead some of you all watching this video to go ahead and kind of do the same introspection, as well as, kind of look at the people in your gaming groups, whether, you're in a club, like most of the gamers in Europe, or if you've got a friendly local gaming store, like most of the gamers here in America. Just kind of, see how you can interact better with the gamers that you surround yourself with. So a little bit of background about me. So my Myers-Briggs personality type is an INTJ. For most of the people who know me, or have known me, throughout my life, that probably does not surprise them. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that with all of these personality types, they are somewhat fluid. There is an ability as you learn and grow as a person that you may change types over time, or exhibit a specific aspect of a different type in certain situations. It's not like a set in stone, you are this one thing, you'll never be anything else. However, for me, as you'll see when I pull up, my sort of assessment results, I pretty much stay in that INTJ zone throughout most of my life. But anyway, that's enough background about what a Myers-Briggs, test is. Let's actually kind of examine the INTJ type. All right, so I've pulled up my profile on the 16 Personalities website. Now, they have a somewhat abbreviated version of the Myers-Briggs test. In my taking it a few times for work, it seems fairly in line with the expensive official battery of questions that I have taken in the past for other jobs. But they've managed to sort of condense it down so that you can take it in a few minutes instead of the actual test taking a few hours. And having taking it, again, I had still come up INTJ. And so what this is made up of, there's the four characters in the front of your personality type, and each character means that you lean uh, more strongly toward one of two things for that particular portion of the personality type. So the I for me is introverted instead of extroverted. And as you'll see, which is probably not normal, and I give credence to this, probably indicating that there might be a little bit of neurodivergency going on over here. I test 100% introverted. So my energy comes from being at home, alone, surrounded by all of my things, doing whatever I want to do that calms me. That is what recharges my energy. So it's kind of interesting, being a wargamer, which is a very social hobby, what exactly attracted me, into this space. We'll dig into that. But moving on, so with the intuitive versus observant, instead of using the first letter, they cherry picked other letters since I was already taken. So the N in INTJ is for intuitive, and they use the S in observant if you're a more observant person. And really, this is sort of your being more open-minded versus, observing what's going on and sort of being a little bit more empathetic to other people's, wants, desires, needs, etc. Another very interesting result for me is being 100% thinking versus feeling. Probably another indicator of a little bit of neurodivergency going on over here. So I stay in my head a lot. People also tend to not make sense to me. Things that people do are very perplexing to me. But moving on, we've got judging versus prospecting. And so this is really your people who are judging tend to be very organized, very decisive, very thorough. Everything needs to be clear. We do not like vagueness in anything that we do. Whereas someone who is more prospecting is sort of a kind of figure it out as you go kind of person. Now, the thing that's interesting for me is that my judging on that spectrum, I'm very close to being dead center. So even though I lean a little bit into the everything needs to be rigidly defined, I also do okay if, I kind of need to go it alone and kind of figure it out. And this is kind of what I was talking about, where these sort of personality, exams, they can change over time. Depending on how I'm feeling on a certain day, with me being 100% extroverted and 100% thinking, that's very unlikely to change. But with me being 57% judging today when I took this, tomorrow I might be feeling a little bit more perspective, and that would end up switching me from an INTJ to something else. And then lastly, you have the assertive versus turbulent. So assertive people are, confident, kind of self-assured. All right, so we've broken down what goes into the INTJ personality type. What does that mean for me as a wargamer and how I partake in this expansive hobby? All right, so let's go into introversion. It's kind of an interesting observation that someone who is so extremely introverted would end up taking part in an extremely social hobby. At first glance, you might think to yourself, in order to play a tabletop war game, you need an opponent. You literally need another person that you can play against. And so, being 100% introverted, let me be the first to tell you that does not mean that you hate all people and you can never interact with people. I've had to do it every single day, going through school. I had to do it every single day during my, career. And even being a software engineer, where, I do get to spend a nice chunk of my time by myself coding, I still have tons of meetings where I need to be able to talk to people and relate to people and, get requirements out of people. Sometimes I, have to put on my project manager hat and, coordinate tons of people doing tons of different things. And everybody's got their own, wants and desires, and I need to turn that into a finished product. So that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm unwilling to get out of my house and go, get a game in. What it does mean, though, is I am very likely to not do so as often as other people. If I had a rough week at work, I might let you know on Thursday and Friday, hey, that game that we had scheduled for Saturday, I'm gonna need to reschedule. I just don't have the mental fortitude right now to be in a crowded gaming space with all the noise and all the people and everything. Like, I need to, recuperate, and we can try and reschedule for, another time. Another thing is that I really throw myself really deeply into aspects of the hobby that don't necessarily involve other people. So I really enjoy the model building. I really enjoy the painting. I really enjoy being able to just sit down with a book and, read all the rules and all the lore and just kind of absorb all of that knowledge. So that's another, way that an extremely introverted person can still engage with wargaming outside of the actual gaming. Now, moving on to, the intuitive versus the observant part of the personality trait of INTJ. Being intuitive pretty much means that, you know, I'm a creative person. You know what I mean? So a lot of, people who exhibit high intuition, they typically are very open-minded, very imaginative. So, being able to throw myself into, a sci-fi universe, or really getting into the narrative of a game that I am playing is right up my alley. So I really love narrative campaigns. I Sometimes I don't even need to play the campaign. Just being able to sit down and like read through a narrative campaign, or even better, plan a narrative campaign, can be fun in and of itself. So for the thinking versus feeling part of the personality type, this can exhibit in numerous ways and not always positively. So for me personally, this means that I spend a lot of a game in my head. So, while let's take Warhammer 40K for example, where it's a you go, I go, we alternate turns. During your turn, I'm planning out what you're most likely to do, how I'm going to respond to that next turn, how you're going to respond to me 2 turns from now, and how I'm going to counter what you're doing in 3 turns. And every time you do something that doesn't, go along with the plan that I'm constantly drafting in my head, I'm revising my plan and going through it and going through it and going through it over and over and over again until eventually we get to the end of the game. This also means that sometimes when it's my turn to go, sometimes I might take a little bit longer than, other players who are just kind of like in the moment. You're high on the, adrenaline and excitement and energy drinks, and you're just kind of moving stuff willy-nilly and you don't really care about the results. I am carefully thinking about every single move, every single dice roll, every single modifier all the time. And like, I can't turn that part of my brain off. It's always there. It's a little bit of a curse. And so this means that some games or some game modes, I don't really enjoy as much. So, for instance, for anybody who's old enough to remember, competitive War Machine from the mid 20 teens, that was played on a chess clock. You know what I mean? For official events, you had a limited amount of time for each game to take, and you could blow through all of your time on turn two if you wanted to, but then the rest of that game played out and you didn't get to do anything because you already used all of your time. That is incredibly stressful for me. And even more generally, I typically don't enjoy tournaments, even if they don't use a chess clock. It's just, way too much pressure to, do everything that I need to do. And, I can't turn off the way my brain works. And, trying to move quickly while constantly revising plans in my head, it's just utter chaos. It's not a nightmare. Tournaments just really don't mesh well with me. I definitely, can appreciate people who can do that well, and go out and compete all the time and perform at the highest levels. I can definitely admire that skill, but it's not for me. It's not something where I derive enjoyment. Now, for the judging versus prospecting aspect and how that plays into the hobby, so I do like my gaming environment to be very, very organized. To the point where I will 3D print sort of like organizational game aids so I can keep all my tokens like, nice and neat. Dice trays were a godsend when people started, selling like really, really cheap dice trays. Like in my head, I was just like, oh my God, you mean dice don't have to like randomly roll all over the table and knock over miniatures and ruin paint jobs, or like fall on the floor, and now we're all like crawling around trying to find this one die under the table. Like, love me a dice tray. So I do lean really, really heavy into liking to keep my gaming area organized. But because I'm, right in the middle of that judging versus prospecting, I think the prospecting aspect really comes into play with, me just loving to find new games. You know what I mean? So I try not to shoehorn, myself into one game system versus the other. I find with almost every game system I've ever played, there are things I love, there are things that I hate. But I'm always, super curious about learning about new games. I've got miniatures for I couldn't even tell you how many games. Some of them I've literally never even played. I really loved the way the miniatures looked. I knew I'd have a blast, building them and painting them. Picked up the rule book, it was something new that I could absorb and stuff into my brain. And I can have fun with that. And then lastly, the, assertive versus turbulent. So I think leaning really, really heavy on the assertive side really kind of comes into play when it comes down to actually making a decision in a game. I've gamed this out so much in my head already. I've, done the math. I've figured, here are the consequences of me taking this action. That by the time I actually go and make that decision and move my piece or do whatever I'm doing, I'm okay with whatever happens. It's not going to cause me any stress. It exhibits itself, as being very confident in the actions that I take. Whereas, someone who was more turbulent, They might second guess themselves a lot. They might, not really know the best way to sort of proceed through a situation. If something goes wrong, they might, second guess future decisions and so forth. And that's just, not something that I struggle with. I typically take my time to arrive to, the best decision that I can make with the data on hand. But anyway, so that's my talk. I'm really interested in hearing about you guys, though. Um, if you guys wanted to, take the, abbreviated Myers-Briggs test yourself and kind of, see what your personality type comes out as, you can go to 16personalities.com, and that's 16personalities.com. I'll put a link down in the description of the video, and you can take the little quiz. It takes maybe 5 minutes, and there's lots of data out there about once you figure out what your personality type is, what exactly does that mean, and how you interact with other people, and sort of like things to be aware of about your personality type and so forth. But for anyone who is going to take it, or you've already taken it, I am super curious to hear, how your knowledge of like what your personality type is, how that, helps you relate to wargaming as a hobby. So go ahead and leave some comments down below. I will be reading all of these. If I ended up, not going into coding for a living, I probably would have studied psychology. So I'm always like super interested in, learning about, how people relate and interact and all that fun stuff. So leave some comments down below. Again, like and share the video if you found this interesting. And I will catch you all in the next video, which will be a painting video. I will be working on some Spartan tanks for Legions Imperialis this week. So until next time, keep slaying that gray, and I'll see you all in the next video.